Before I tell you which iPad you should buy, answer this one question first. What are you actually using it for? Watching videos, taking notes, or perhaps replacing your laptop? This is really important as iPads range from $330 all the way up to $3,000 and you don't want to pay pro prices just for scrolling TikTok, right? So here's my honest breakdown of what every single iPad in the lineup can do, regardless of which model you choose. First up is the app ecosystem. iPad apps aren't just scaled up phone apps, they are proper tools. We have Procreate for digital art, DaVinci Resolve for video editing, and even Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro are there on the iPad. All the productivity apps you already use are built to feel great on the bigger screen. Second, the accessories that change everything. Add the Magic Keyboard for email and documents, and the iPad can feel like a legit laptop replacement. Thirdly, the Apple Pencil. This is one of the biggest iPad advantages for notes and drawing. The latency is super low. It genuinely feels like writing on paper. And finally, Apple Intelligence. On-device AI that's getting smarter. Every iPad in this current lineup has this except the base iPad 11 Gen. So that's the foundation. Now, which specific iPad should you actually buy? You have got the base iPad. Yup, it's just called the iPad. The iPad Mini, the iPad Air, and lastly, the iPad Pro. I'm Prithviraj and let me help you find the ideal iPad. Let us start with the first iPad in the lineup, which is the iPad 11 generation. This is the budget option that Apple provides, and I'm gonna say something that might actually surprise you. For most people watching this video, this is probably the right iPad, as the iPad 11 is genuinely amazing for its price. Also, as I mentioned, the iPad 12 Gen is around the corner. We will talk about that in a moment. But in terms of the iPad 11 Gen, it features the A16 Bionic chipset. That's the exact same chipset they featured on the iPhone 15. So for day-to-day usage, this thing is fast. Apps load up instantly. I was able to run games like Asphalt or COD Mobile on medium to high settings, and I did not face any issues. It features an 11-inch display with vibrant colors along with 500 nits of brightness. Also, we get that richness in the audio, so the overall media experience is great on this device. The storage situation has also been fixed. The base model now starts with 128 gigs, which is genuinely enough for most people. So if you want a tablet for primarily watching videos, this is the one. But here's where I want to be real with you. I've used this iPad extensively over the past year. The first issue is of course about the display. The screen is not laminated, which means there is a tiny air gap between the glass and the panel. So in case you are looking for a tablet for doing digital art and stuff like that, you won't get that precision. But if you're a student, however, it will work out just fine. Also, the display only has a refresh rate of 60 Hz, but we can really ignore that for now, as only the iPad Pro features a ProMotion display. So if you want a higher refresh rate tablet at this price, you have to take a look at Android tablets. You won't get that here on the iPad. Another drawback in terms of the stylus is that it only supports the first gen Apple Pencil and the USB Type-C Apple Pencil. Sadly, none of them has wireless charging. Also, please avoid the Gen 1 Apple Pencil, as the dongle situation is really weird. You're gonna lose its cap someday or the other. One more thing, and this actually matters more than people talk about. This is the only iPad in the entire lineup that does not support Apple Intelligence. Here is a screenshot of its current price in India as well as on US. But the most important question is, who is this iPad really for? This one is ideal for students who needs a reliable, fast tablet for taking notes, lectures, and online classes. Else, if you're someone who is just looking for a tablet for binge watching Netflix, browsing casually, checking mails, and your daily productivity tasks, in that case, it doesn't really make sense to spend a fortune on getting the iPad Pro. This one will just get the job done. It is the best value for money iPad in the market. But if you want to buy a tablet for creative work and heavy gaming or a laptop replacement, then move on. But if you just want a brilliant everyday iPad that does 90% of what the expensive iPads do for nearly half the price, then this is your answer. But wait, should you buy this right now? Here's the part I promised you at the start. The iPad 12 Gen will arrive in the upcoming spring Apple event, and if rumors are accurate, it's a bigger bump than the usual chipset swap. It will finally support Apple Intelligence. If you can wait for a couple months, it might be worth it. But if you need an iPad right now, the iPad 11 Gen still offers excellent value and definitely deserves your money. If you are someone who prioritizes portability over everything else, then let's talk about the iPad Mini. Also, I'll leave all the links of the iPads as well as their review videos in the description, so you can check them out if you'd be interested in that. Now, here is why I love the iPad Mini. It's like a book, literally. That is the superpower of iPad Mini. And honestly, no spec sheet can communicate this. You have to hold this thing on your hand to understand it. But here's the twist, and this is what makes the iPad Mini a complicated iPad to recommend, and that is the price. We'll get into that, but this thing is a powerhouse comes in such a tiny package. The iPad mini is powered by the Apple A17 Pro chipset. This is the same chipset found in iPhone 15 Pro. That means it's fast and responsive, even for demanding apps and gaming. It supports Apple Intelligence. It also has a laminated display, just a crisp glass fused to a vibrant 8.3-inch screen. And finally, it supports the Apple Pencil Pro. I previously created a video where I mentioned that the iPad mini is kind of my favorite iPad solely because of its size. Hence, this is where the iPad mini stands out, and that is in terms of its portability. It's perfect for people who are always on the go. You won't be having to take that hassle of managing a large device, thus making it ideal for commuters and travelers or anyone who simply prefers a smaller device. You are gonna get an amazing reading experience on this, and here's a side-by-side comparison with my Kindle. It's more or less of the same size. However, for note-taking and other creative tasks, for example digital art, the smaller screen size can be a limiting factor, I have to say. But then you look at the price. For $99 for an 8.3-inch tablet with 60Hz display and no M-series chipset, the price is kind of the biggest drawback of the iPad mini. Here is the exact screenshot, and I'm not saying it's bad, as most of the time we pay for a larger screen, but for this one you are paying for a smaller screen perhaps. So who is the iPad mini exactly for? This is for the traveler who wants maximum power in minimum space, or maybe you love reading and you want a device that does everything a Kindle does, along with all the extra features of course. But this one is not for you. If you're into serious creative work, drawing, video editing or digital art, the screen size is way too small for that. You will obviously want more screen real estate for tasks like that, and if you're price conscious, spending $500 on a tablet without the M-series chipset genuinely stings when you compare it with the iPad Air. The mini is a niche product for the people who know exactly what they want. Portability over everything else. If you're not sure if you want that, you should probably go for the iPad Air. Also, please consider hitting that subscribe button if you're finding this helpful. I have a lot of videos on iPad workflows and real-life systems lined up. You are gonna find them interesting. Next up, we have got the iPad Air, and this is what I like to call the sweet spot in the entire lineup. The iPad Air is perfect for those who need a bit more power without having to go all the way for the iPad Pro. We also get two variants with the iPad Air. It has an 11-inch as well as a 13-inch variant. The screen is brighter, the colors will pop more, so watching HDR content on this one is simply lovely. But the real upgrade in the iPad Air is what's inside this device, and that is the M3 chipset. This is the same chipset found in the MacBooks, so we officially leave the iPhone comparisons and enter the MacBook level power right now. Pro apps for digital art like Procreate or video editing apps like DaVinci Resolve for Final Cut Pro, the iPad Air can handle it all quite comfortably. We also have a 1TB variant for the iPad Air if storage is your concern. Plus, the iPad Air supports the Apple Pencil Pro once again, which is a game changer for anyone who takes a lot of notes or likes to draw stuff. The Apple Pencil Pro has almost no latency and is super accurate. And with the Magic Keyboard connected, the iPad Air genuinely starts to feel like a lightweight laptop. I previously made a video where I used this as my primary computer for an entire week, writing, editing, Zoom calls, research, and I only reached for my laptop twice. One for a specific plugin that I needed and the iPad didn't have that, and the second one was out of habit. Now that's impressive. But here's my honest frustration with the iPad Air. It's still 60Hz in 2026. The iPad Pro has at 120Hz for years, and here we still are with an M3 powered device that scrolls at 60Hz. You can literally feel it, especially since the iPhones also have the ProMotion display. But speaking of the display itself, it really looks and feels good, but that 60Hz ceiling makes it feel like a Ferrari with a speed limiter, and that's just sad. There are some rumors suggesting that Apple could actually update the Air with ProMotion display in 2026. Now if that update drops, the Air goes from a great recommendation to an absolute no-brainer. But for that we need to wait and see. But all in all, it's still the best all-rounder in the lineup. Here is a screenshot of its current price. So who is the iPad Air for? This is for the creative professional who wants real power without having to pay pro prices, or if you're a student who does actual work, essays, design projects, video editing, and not just note-taking. This tablet can genuinely replace your laptop for 90% of the tasks. The Air is the sweet spot, and it always has been that way. And with the M3 chipset, it's gonna be relevant for the next 5 years minimum. Hence, if you're someone who wants the balance of performance and portability and don't really want to spend extra for the iPad Pro, the iPad Air is still your best bet. I want to start this with a confession. When I first got the iPad Pro M5 out of the box, I genuinely stared at it for a moment. Not because of the specs, but because of how it looks. The 11-inch model is 5.3mm thin, and the 13-inch model is 5.1mm thin. And that's actually slimmer than the iPad Air as well. So let's talk about what this thing actually does. The M5 chipset in the new iPad Pro is in a completely different galaxy compared to everything else in this lineup. We also get 12 gigs of RAM on all base models. The iPad Pro in 2026 has headroom for the next decade. The display is the real argument for the Pro. That 120Hz ProMotion OLED panel is genuinely the best screen on any tablet that you can get your hands onto right now. Scrolling will feel super smooth, writing with the Apple Pencil Pro, and I use this word carefully. Perfect. The latency is so low, the accuracy is so precise that even my ugly handwriting looks great on this screen. The OLED panels mean deep blacks that the iPad Air's LCD can really match, and when you turn on full HDR brightness, the Pro hits the peak that makes the screen genuinely luminous. There is also a nano texture option with the 1TB and the 2TB models that gives the glass a matte paper-like coating that reduces glare dramatically and makes the pencil feel even more natural. I'm not using the nano texture one myself, as I kinda prefer that glossy display, as I really like to binge watch YouTube on this device. I literally have been using this iPad as my primary computer. I use this one to manage my entire life using my daily planner. This thing keeps me super productive and accountable to my goals. I connected my iPad to a monitor with the keyboard case and ran DaVinci Resolve and Final Cut Pro with the 4K project open. It did not struggle at all. That's not a tablet. That's a computer that happens to be a tablet. Now this is what you won't find on the spec sheet. I found the ceiling of the iPad Pro, and it's not the hardware, it is the software. There are still so many things you can't do on the iPad OS, which you can on the macOS of course. But think of this for a moment. The iPad Pro is so powerful that I'm not comparing it with other tablets, but rather I'm having to compare it with the MacBooks instead. That's crazy. Also the price. Here's the screenshot as always. The fully spec'd out 13-inch iPad Pro with nano texture display, 2TB of storage, Magic Keyboard and the Apple Pencil Pro. You're spending a north of $3,000. That's the MacBook Pro territory and not for the iPads. And in many cases a MacBook Pro will of course do more. So you have to ask yourself this one question: whether the form factor, the tablet experience and the Apple Pencil integration justifies that premium over a laptop. For most people, it really does not. And I say that being someone who genuinely loves this device. So that brings me to this question: who is the iPad Pro exactly for? If you're a professional digital artist or an animator who needs the best stylus experience ever, or rather you're a video editor who wants desktop class power and something that fits in your carry-on bag. In short, if you want to build a full workstation with just your tablet, this is the best option for that, period. And also, if you're that kind of a person who just wants the absolute best and doesn't need to justify that, then this is the one you should get, as this is the most premium experience that Apple has to offer. If you're not doing any professional creative work, or you don't care about the ProMotion display, the iPad Air does 90% of what the iPad Pro does for significantly less money. But if you want to live at the edge of what a tablet can do, the iPad Pro won't let you down. Alright, let me make this simple for you. The base iPad. Buy this if you want a great everyday tablet. You are budget conscious and you don't care about Apple Intelligence or that 120Hz display. You just want a reliable iPad that does the basics brilliantly. The iPad mini. Buy this if you already know that you want a smaller tablet, you travel constantly, you read a lot, and you want maximum portability without sacrificing power. This iPad is for the people who choose this on instinct. If you are unsure about that, this is not for you. Check the iPad Air, as this is most people's answer. M3 power, brilliant display, Apple Pencil Pro support, thus future-proofing it for years. And if someone asks me which iPad I should buy, 80% of the time my answer would be the iPad Air. Which brings us to the iPad Pro. If you're a creative professional or you want that OLED display with 120Hz ProMotion, in short you're spending serious money and you want a device that has earned that spot. And one final thing before you pull the trigger on any of these, consider the accessories storage, because you can't upgrade that later. Accessories you can, not the storage. You can also check out third-party keyboards if you don't want the Apple Magic Keyboard, so that you can use this as a laptop replacement, and also the Apple Pencil Pro if you like to draw and take handwritten notes. Those choices can add hundreds to your bill, so factor them in before you actually decide on the iPad itself. And do let me know your thoughts in the comments on which one you would like for yourself. I literally manage my entire life using my iPad, my task list, calendar, as well as my finances on my iPad. That's crazy, I know. If you would be interested in that, then click here on this video, and over there I have shared the exact system I follow to stay super productive. You would love that. See you there.